Hi everyone, welcome. Today we are diving into the colorful world of composition as it pertains to gel printing. I'm Christy Hartman. This is not a masterclass in composition, rather a fun, quick way to use a few compositional techniques to build fun tropical themed cards without overthinking it. I'm talking color, texture, layering, a few simple tricks to pull it all together fast, fun, and totally creative, with a short, down and dirty dive into the elements and principles of design. You can't talk composition without going there, in my opinion. If this sparks your interest, you might want to take a class on composition or read a great book. I'm here to inspire you without raising your anxiety about composition. Remember, very few of these rules work in exclusion. They all work together to support each other, just like we as artists support each other. Let's get started. Selecting and combining gel prints is actually easier than what you think. Look at your gel prints. Look at them and think, can I choose colors which go together, whether they're complementary or analogous color themes? Maybe I should mix bold and subtle textures or patterns, and let me layer prints with a purpose so that I notice the difference between the foreground and the background. The elements and principles of design are the building blocks of composition for developing artworks that you're happy with. The elements are the basic ones. So we have texture, we have line, we have color, we have form, space, we have shape, and we have pattern. So each one of these has some information. So texture is how something feels. It can be implied or it can be actual. Color, we have hue, which are the color names. Value is areas of light and dark. Line are linear marks. They develop a feeling of movement. In gel printing, sometimes they are linear marks, sometimes they're not linear marks. Form can be 3D, but it adds volume. Form in gel printing could be a stencil. Space is basically variations in perspective, but it's also positive and negative space, which we understand, those of us that are gel printers. We understand this perfectly because we use stencils. Shape is a self-contained, defined area. Can be geometric, organic, two-dimensional, and of course pattern, which is the repetition of line, shape, and color. These do not work in exclusion, and you'll hear me repeat that a few times throughout this video. The elements are the building blocks. The principles are where you take those building blocks one step further. They do not work on their own. They can, but generally they do not. So this one is going to talk about two different principles of design. We're going to talk about balance, because with these two it's very symmetrical. They're analogous colors, they're side by side. Our colors give us the feeling of calmness. So let's glue these on first. So here is my example for balance. Now, let's add our contrast. This feature stripe has a heavier look to it, so the texture is a little bit heavier. We have gone from basically a mixture of warm and cool colors, but it has a very calming effect in the background, to this one where we add the purple next to our yellow, which is a complementary color. We have the heavier texture of this, and we have the pink next to the green, which is a complementary color. Up against this it creates definite contrast. Let's talk about harmony in relation to this card. This one has a sense of cohesion amongst the elements. We have this turquoise color, which repeats out here. We have this kind of textural design, which is created right here with the carrots. We have the color palette. Same colors, even though we have this vibrant red, we can still see the turquoise through that red. So it feels like it all belongs together, and we're using similar textures. So this is harmony or unity. Now we're going to talk about 3 principles of design for this one. We're going to talk about rhythm, which is repetition and movement, where you have a visual flow created by repeating elements or guiding the viewer's eye. We're also going to talk about proportion, so the size relationship between the elements, and variety. So we're going to talk about how using elements to create interest to avoid monotony. So let's talk about, first of all, variety, using the elements so that it's not monotonous. Now on this one, we have this print, which I created in a video a while ago. I'm not sure how long ago, but this is a rondadona stencil. I don't remember the name, but I'll link it down below. These are some masks that I've cut out and I use periodically to create interesting shapes, colors. So first of all, we have the sizes are approximately the same, so they're proportional. Also, this one, we can talk a little bit about space, because we have positive and negative space in both of these. The negative space is all the background in this one. The positive space is the blue, the pattern in the stencil. Here we have the surrounding colors around the shapes of the masks. We've mixed up the patterns, we've mixed up the texture, so we have variety. We also have a great sense of rhythm or movement. So you get the movement of this piece, and this one you almost get the feel of swirling leaves coming down. So we've created that sense of movement that will guide the viewer's eye around and through this. So let's glue this one together. Now let's talk about this center feature stripe. We have a couple things going on here. First of all, we have orange and blue, which are complementary colors. But on this side, we have the same turquoise and the same yellow that shows up in this print. So this one, this side is a little bit more analogous, this side is a little bit more complementary. I think it gives kind of that sense of drama. So the rule of thirds is basically a tic-tac-toe board where key elements are placed at the intersecting points. So if we were to draw 3 lines coming down this card, 3 lines coming across, those would be our intersecting points. But we have to create the rule of thirds on the card. So this, for me, is my version of the rule of thirds. This is 1/3, not quite, but it's pretty close. Here we have another third where these little dots come down, and then of course we would intersect it across. So why does this work? Well, it creates balance without being too boring or too centered. And it also allows your eye to move naturally down through the intersections. So what we want to do is when we put our focal point on here, depending upon what we use for the focal point, we don't want to place the focal point dead center. We want to arrange it so that the weight is arranged off-centered, which I have done right here with the background, and then of course the focal point will go over the top of it. Now if we were going to flip this and have it be in the landscape version, the horizon line would be either up towards the top or down towards the bottom, and that's how that works. Now I could place a plastic grid across here and we could use that if we wanted to. Or you could do that for yourself at home. Make a plastic grid out of an overlay or a piece of vellum, and then you would know where did you want your intersecting lines to be. And then, as many of you know, who have watched my designs before, I like to add a feature stripe. I think it just enhances the print. We also have, along with our rule of thirds with this background, a little bit of a contrast here with a color contrast. This is the diagonal arrangement. Now I cut this purposely in half directly down my rectangles because I wanted it to be equally spaced. You wouldn't have to do that. I could have come down further down here, further up here. This is actually very balanced as far as this goes. Now, when I put my focal point on here, that will change that balance in the background. But let's talk about this briefly. Here we have two different gel prints. This is one of my carrot gel prints from one of my videos, and this one was from Creating Grunge that I did a while back. Let's glue these two on. This is my stamp. It's called Hibiscus. And we're going to stamp it on a few pieces of brayer off papers. And it's a pretty good size stamp. I think you would want to use a fairly good size stamp pad. This is the archival ink. Very nice. Very, very nice. That looks great. Okay, let's do a couple more, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with them. It was a little bit smoother piece of brayer off, so let's do one more on this other side. Well, that one turned out pretty good too. Let's clean this one off real quick and I'll be back. Alright, I have a few that I think have stamped pretty well on brayer offs that I think we can use. And there's more. I just showed you a few of them. Let's talk focal point. So on this stamped image, it was on a blue brayer off, and I decided that it was too blue when I put it down onto my card. Consequently, for the leaves, I use these three colored pencils. This one is PC 989. Yeah, PC 989. This is Canary Yellow, which is PC 916. This one, I don't know. It's a green. It's a light green. It's 91 something. Now for the flower, I just did the edges of the petals. I honestly have done so much colored pencil work for you, I didn't think that you really probably wanted to see it. It's very simple. I left the blue of the paper inside to create the depth and the shadowed effect, and just came out on the edges, and I used this one, which is I think it's light aqua, 992, and this one is powder blue. So that's what I did as far as colored pencils go. I'm going to do some stamping on these cards because I like how this looks when I place that focal point down low, but I would like to have a little bit of black on here. So let's just add some here. Now let's take a look at this, see how it looks with our focal point. Yeah, I think that added a little bit to the card. I really think this one is just going to stay the way it is. I like it just the way it is. Same thing with this one. I might do something in these leaves, and then that might mean I do something here. I'll decide. This one, which I think looks great. This one I like. I've kind of been back and forth with these numerous times. This one, I think that one looks beautiful. Now this is one of the diagonal cards. And look how that diagonal just changes the look of that card where the hibiscus is. I think that made a huge difference. This one I think is lovely. I don't know if I want any stamping on there. This one I am going to add some colored pencil to, and I think I'm going to add some red to it. We talked about the rule of thirds, and we talked about how there is these imaginary lines that come down and across, and you want to think about adding these to those intersecting points. Now I'm going to put this one down low enough that it's not just right smack dab in the center of the card, although I could, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But I kind of want it down here just a bit. Let's add just a little bit more stamping to it. And this stamp has an irregular edge, which is super nice. Yes, that did the trick. I like that. Okay, let's glue that on there and I'll be back. I want to talk about these two just a little bit more, and I want to talk just briefly again about focal point. On these two I added red to the flowers using my colored pencils, and I used crimson red and poppy red, 924 and 922. I also went into these with a little bit of this light aqua, which is 992, and then felt that I needed a little bit more depth, and I added ultramarine. And you can see where I added the red out here in the outer edges, and then went in here with the turquoise, which is the light aqua, in here, and then darkened in with a little bit of that ultramarine just down in the very bottom. Same thing on this one. Then for the leaves, I used the same greens that I had used before, did each one of these sets of leaves, and look at how different each one of these leaves look based on what the background looked like from the brayer off. I then went in and darkened in the very centers on those leaves with the ultramarine. One thing that's important with composition is where you repeat those same colors. And this is something that we've talked about before. So here's my turquoise, here's my turquoise. I've got a turquoise blue in both of these flowers, and I have a little turquoise blue down in the leaves. Again, we have turquoise out here. Here's my red orange. here's my red, here's my red. It just allows you to have your eye move around this piece. That is the basic thing about focal point. Not only are you dealing with where you arrange the object that's going to be your focal point that draws your eye directly into it, you also want to look at the colors that you use so that you are repeating the colors from the background. These are my diagonal arrangement. And you know what? I think it is a little more dynamic. Your eye starts up here, at least mine does, and it draws right down until you hit this hibiscus, flows around it, and comes back down. And in that arrangement, you see all of the elements. This gold is actually repeated right here in this background. These are a few of the cards that I added a black stamped element to the backgrounds. I did in this one. This one here we have, this is lavender, there's a little bit of purple here, but here we have that black which pulls your eye down and around. Same thing with this one. This one draws your eye down and around. Turquoise is repeated here. We have a little bit of gold here and a little bit of the reddish pink, and then we have the same colors in the feature stripe. Well, there you have it. A quick and dirty dive into artistic composition using gel prints with a tropical twist. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just play, layer, shift things around, allow the colors to do their job. Use the rule of thirds, the focal point, and play with diagonals, but don't be afraid to break the rules. If you had fun, give me a thumbs up. Hit subscribe and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you'd like to explore in composition. Let me see your tropical creations. Thanks for hanging out with me. Go get messy and make something beautiful. I'll see you in my next video.